Right now, the airstrike and assassination of Hamas leader and political chief Ismail Haniyeh by Israel in Iran has increased fears of an escalation in the conflict in the Middle East. Now, in a televised address yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel has delivered a crushing blow to all its enemies in recent days. Now, people have continued to gather in Tehran to mourn Haniyeh and call for retaliation against Israel. To talk to us about these latest developments and the implications of this in the Israel war in Gaza and the assassination of the Hamas leader, we are joined in studio by Patrick Kadima, Wits Business School lecturer, and he's also international law analyst. Patrick, thanks for your time. So let's just get straight into it. Again, at a time when one is hoping that there would be a de-escalation in hostilities, this happens. So how does this now impact the current situation?
Thank you. Good morning, and good morning to your viewers. So I think now it brings in a different front to the conflict, a different phase, and that phase is one of escalation, where tensions will be high, not only in the Middle East, but also globally, you know, because this is a geopolitical angle to it. So, you know, we are faced with a country that has time and again not followed the court orders of the International Court of Justice, and it has failed to abide by it. It is backed through its allies who, you know, have, you know, let it go off, you know, to do whatever it wants. And this is really shocking now. And we'll have to wait how, you know, various countries and various regions react to this. But for me, obviously, it puts an escalation to the conflict.
Because it is not insignificant that this attack took place in Iran. And of course, now there's fears of a regional escalation.
Yes, that should not be written off. That is what's going to, you know, probably happen. And whatever the case, you know, it needs now, you know, countries that are very influential in the global sphere to come to play. You know, countries like America, countries like China, you know, to come and sit down and say, you know what, this conflict should not escalate to that, because if it does, there is going to be a humanitarian crisis. There is already one, you know, but if it blows out to a full regional conflict, then we should expect a situation where there is a humanitarian crisis, where there is tension in a certain region, and that will obviously affect countries, you know, even in Europe, you know, the migration crisis might return, and so on and so forth. And this is not what we want, because currently the world cannot contain the problems it's facing in terms of conflicts, and a regional escalation will be to the detriment of many countries.
And we look at a figure, a leader of Hamas in Ismail Haniyeh, who's been seen as the face of Hamas diplomacy, if you will, since that fateful October 7th attack last year. And now with this assassination, what does this do for the prospects of a possible ceasefire in that war in Gaza?
It does not. It does not look good, if I may put it that way. You know, the ceasefire situation, as we've seen over the few months, you know, there's been failure in terms of getting to a proper agreement, you know, in terms of the ceasefire. Now, here you have killed a leader of this group, you know, of Hamas, and now you're expecting that maybe you will reach into a ceasefire agreement very easily. That is impossible. I don't think it's going to likely happen. There are going to be tensions that are going to be there. And, you know, from previous conflicts that we've seen or studied, you know, you will see that when such situations happen where a key leader is being killed, it doesn't lead to a ceasefire. Rather, it will lead to more escalations.
So we've seen the United Nations condemn this attack. Of course, they've been condemning various attacks. Is it enough? What do they need to do at this stage?
At this stage, for me, I believe that the United Nations is in a very difficult position. It's also difficult for me, if I was in the shoes of the Secretary General, you know, to be able to condemn these attacks, but you know that your hands are tied because of a certain United Nations Security Council that has not been reformed. I've always said that if you want the UN to be successful in its peacekeeping missions, it needs to have reformed United Nations Security Council. Without that, we are not going to go anywhere. Whether the General Assembly, you know, makes a lot of noise, you know, and condemns these attacks, if the United Nations Security Council continues to veto and have certain countries that have such a power, you know, to veto certain resolutions, then we're not going to go anywhere. And it is very difficult, and the UN will continue to do that. But at this point, I've come to the conclusion that, you know, international law as an institution is failing, you know, in maintaining world peace and order, and there needs to be reforms, you know. Even if we have countries like South Africa, you know, that are becoming a leading voice in terms of conflict resolution and so on and so forth, it can only do so much, you know, to a certain extent. And if we have America that continues to back, you know, such leaders in not following what the court is saying or what the General Assembly is saying, then we have a serious problem.
Well, Patrick, thanks so much for stopping by. Patrick Kadima is Wits Business School lecturer and international law analyst, and of course speaking to us about the fears of increased tensions in Gaza after the assassination of one of the Hamas leaders.